Welcome back to Football Kingdom. Tyler Mallon, Brandon Johnson. It has been officially 1 year since we've started Football Kingdom podcast. We started August of 2023, kind of breaking down the AFC and NFC, preparing for that season. So I think it's appropriate for the 2024 season to break down the AFC and NFC again. So over the next month, we have 4 episodes for you. This week, we have the AFC West and the AFC North. We'll get the rest of the AFC West the following week. And then the back half of August, we will preview the NFC. And then by the time all of these episodes are out, it'll be time to talk about week 1 and prepare for that. So Tyler, it's been, again, a while since we've gotten together, but we are ready to get back in the swing of things. It's going to be week 1 before we know it. So good to be on with you.
Yeah, man, I am so excited to do this episode. Actually have a little surprise for you because I went back and listened to both of those episodes last week. And, I got some stats from our picks.
Oh boy.
And yeah. Yeah, it's we weren't too bad. But yeah, I definitely want to we're going to pick each division this year and write it down this time. But yeah, I went back and listened to our first 2 episodes and couldn't wait to get into this one and start the 2024 season here.
Yeah. So I think it's appropriate to start with the AFC West. It's where the back-to-back Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs are. And obviously, the goal for them, the Chiefs, is to win back-to-back Super Bowls. That's something that, to my knowledge, has not been done. And
nope.
I think that, now this is not even a homer take, but I think if they were able to win a Super Bowl last season with everything that happened with the offense basically not being able to catch the football, and then turning it on in the postseason, I think the skill position players are better this year. Drafted Xavier Worthy. Obviously, you have Travis Kelce, brought in Hollywood Brown. Subtractions, obviously MVS, Drop King is gone. Our expectations of Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore are going to be significantly lower. I mean, there's a chance that one of those 2 players aren't going to be on the team. I'd imagine it's Sky Moore, but I think a lot of that will probably come down to Rashee Rice being available. And honestly, we haven't heard anything about possible discipline. So I'm honestly wondering if I'm honestly thinking he's going to be available this season, and that might get pushed out to next season. But I think this could be a pretty good team.
Yeah. James Palmer today, an hour ago, was saying, Kadarius Toney, they've been putting him at running back in training camp, which is interesting. Just get the ball in his hands so he doesn't have to catch it anymore. So I don't know. I mean, that's kind of what you do a lot of the times, like with the jet sweeps with this team anyway. And honestly, who knows? I might get his. That's actually something. But yeah, get his confidence back up. But yeah, that's actually something we talked about last year. Is I came out and said, because I think you were like, well, what do you think about Kadarius Toney? And I was like, I think this whole injury stuff is overblown, and I think he's going to be one of our best receivers. And you then agreed with me, so I set us both up for failure there. But I don't know. Yeah, I did not expect. I don't know. It's hope season. It's like I thought for sure, he was going to come in and the injuries were overblown, and of course he did get injured and then drops, and I don't know. Who the heck knows, but yeah, going back to Kelsey though, like I did want to talk about like his kind of his off season, and most of last season too. People are like, is he hurt? Is he old? What's wrong with Travis Kelsey? He's not going to be the same guy anymore. That's something I wanted to say is like, I want to get my take out there of like, I think that's all overblown. I don't want to give him the Kadarius Tony curse here, but 100%. I thought, Kelsey looked fine. The whole offense was struggling, but it's been a weird kind of take or like narrative that a lot of people, even Kansas City fans have been holding, and I'm on the other side of it. I just wanted to get that take out there because I think it's kind of BS. I think he's totally fine. Maybe he was a little injured, just a little slower. I don't think he's going anywhere. I think he's going to be still Mahomes' best target, and he's still going to be Travis Kelsey.
Yeah, I think with Travis Kelsey, like last season was his first year in like 6 seasons that he didn't have 1,000 yards, but he missed the first game because he hyperextended his knee like the 3 days before the first game, and then he voluntarily sat out the final game of the season, so he could have just played like half a quarter and probably got 1,000 yards, but not like. I think he's going to be fine this year. I think he'll get 1,000 yards. But last season, everybody else was like so terrible. Like as far as receivers go, that like Travis Kelsey, everybody was defending Travis Kelsey because like these guys can't catch it, these guys can't get open. So we're like, it's just weird. He'll be
that's also
a
true.
Big, a big piece of this offense.
Right. And the new tight end that they drafted, Jared Wiley, that dude is a monster. I think he's taller than Travis Kelsey, and everybody's like, again, it's hope season, but everybody's saying like this dude, if he's learning under Kelsey, he could just be his clone moving forward. And Mahomes will still have a weapon when and if, Kelsey does kind of have a decline. Yeah. So I think we're okay there. I heard a lot of, talk about Kelsey in the offseason, and I'm just kind of tired of hearing it because I don't really believe in all that stuff. But also, I don't want to hear any more talk about a Super Bowl hangover because the Chiefs are first out of the gate. The Chiefs have won back-to-back Super Bowls, all those playoff games, and they're the first to start their training camp. Okay, so get out of here with your takes about being tired and playing too many games. Winning Super Bowls is hard. Yes, it is. But, Andy Reid has one of the toughest training camps, from many players have said that who've played for him. And I think there's a reason for that. They've won 2 in a row and they're on their way to hopefully winning a third. So I don't know. I heard of the Super Bowl hangover talk when the Chiefs are first out of the gate for training camp.
Yeah. And let's hop over to the defense. I think, obviously, big subtraction, L'Jarius Sneed. He's with the Titans.
Yep.
And he was great, obviously. Made one of the biggest plays of the playoffs last season against Zay Flowers. But I think his defense is...
Probably
I think
that
so.
game.
I think his defense is going to continue to be good. I actually think that somebody... like a Joshua Williams will just step up in L'Jarius Sneed's place. And maybe he won't play to the level that L'Jarius Sneed played, but he'll be, I think, a serviceable cornerback. And the defense was top, 5 defense all season last year. And I don't think they're going to need to be that this year because I genuinely, I think the offense is going to be better. I think they're going to be more of a vertical threat this year than they have been in the last 3 seasons, post Tyreek Hill. I think they'll be one of the better scoring offenses, and that'll allow your defense to relax a little bit, if you will. But I just think this team is just really set up to three-peat.
Yeah, and that's a really good point actually, because with that offense, upgrading, defense downgrades for sure with Snead, but I mean, a lot of his teammates are still there, and when you're on a Super Bowl winning team, you're teaching each other, how to be as good as you. So I think they're going to take a lot away from what they've learned from him, and especially what Spags has done with the defense. I think a lot of guys on the defense, especially, will kind of step up. Especially our guy Trent McDuffie. He'll probably step into those shoes and be as dominant or close to it.
Trent McDuffie was all pro last year, so not like I'm just not worried. But
you're right. Yes.
I don't know if you have any more Chiefs. I'm sure we'll talk more about them, but obviously 3 other teams in the AFC West that are vying to take the Chiefs down. I think when you really look at them, the one that people love to put up next to the Chiefs, and really the only one that has a realistic shot, are the Los Angeles Chargers. And I think for me, obviously, Jim Harbaugh, the hiring of Jim Harbaugh as head coach for Los Angeles is like the most intriguing thing about the Chargers, because I feel like Justin Herbert, like, we might know who he is. Maybe Jim Harbaugh can elevate his play just being a proven winner and obviously competent head coach, or he's had Justin Herbert hasn't really had that stability. Obviously, Brandon Staley was a goofball, and then didn't really get a fair shake with Anthony Lynn. So I think I'm intrigued by the Chargers this year. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that they're going to win the AFC West or even make the playoffs, but I think Jim Harbaugh is going to, if we don't see the results this year, next year and the year after, I think you'll see some stability with the Chargers organization.
I agree. That was my main kind of point, is I don't see Jim Harbaugh making a huge difference in year one. Plus who is he throwing to? His receiving core is pretty lacking. Joshua Palmer, Lad McConkey, DJ Shark. I do like Palmer and Shark. McConkey is the rookie, or is he?
I think he's his second year.
Yeah, I think he's brand new. But I really don't see them. I mean, they did pick up 2 tight ends in Will Dissly and Hayden Hurst. So he's putting together a very interesting, core group of guys that, everybody's talking about, the running game that they're going to build. When you've got this guy who can definitely throw bombs down the field, it'll be interesting to see what they're doing with all these guys. But again, I don't really see them as a huge threat for the West. Just not in year one necessarily. So
agreed. So I think, like, Justin Herbert. So if we just look at Justin Herbert's stats over the last, this will be his 5th year in the league. So last year he had 20 touchdowns, he had 7 interceptions, he had 25 and 10 the year prior to that. And those are both significant decreases. And last year was, of course, last year he only played 13 games. But what was a realistic expectation of Justin Herbert this year? Because before, early in his career, 31 touchdowns, 38 touchdowns. So, does he get back to that 30 touchdown mark and 4,200 yards? Whereas
That's an interesting point. That is a huge fall off for him to go 31 and 38 and now 25 and 20. I mean, that is a huge decline in his passing touchdowns. And that's it kind of, wait and see of like what kind of offense they're going to run. When you've got a guy who's capable of throwing this many TDs and all the talk has been a run game, is going to be what Harbaugh is going to change him to. And maybe even a lot of running for him as well. I don't think he's, kind of built for that. I think he's probably capable of it, but how many hits can he take? And I don't know. I don't know if he's quite the dual threat that everybody's, making like Jim Harbaugh's offense out to be. But
yeah. So let's talk Raiders. I mean, what Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell is still there. Like, I'm not taking the Raiders seriously, and neither should you. They can talk a big game about the Patrick Mahomes rules, and we're going to play physical football against the Chiefs, and that's all well and good. That's 2 games out of your 17 game schedule, so maybe you
right.
steal one of those games against the Chiefs, but there's a lot of other stuff to do, and I don't think that this football team is built to contend.
Yeah, Devontae Adams is still there, so they have somebody to throw to, but these guys, I mean, Aiden O'Connell is not a franchise QB. Gardner Minshew is serviceable, but he might get you to the playoffs and lose like he did with the Colts, but not with this Raiders team. Still a pretty solid defensive line, but not a whole lot else to really look at. Oh, you know what? I don't really see the Antonio Pierce pick as a good pick either. I talked a little bit about this at the end of the season, but I heard because it was Max Crosby and I think now Devontae Adams, maybe one other player was like, I'm not signing until I know he's the head coach.
Well,
I don't like that. I don't like players making head coach,
that
decisions.
usually ends poorly when your players pick your
Right.
pick who's in charge, because that takes the power
Exactly.
out of not only the front office's hand but the head coach's hand, because the players told you what
Right.
to do. So at this point, like, now the players probably feel like they can tell you, hey, no, we're not running that play, we're not doing this drill, we're like, like, who's in control? And I
Right.
think, like,
Yeah.
Antonio Pierce can be a nice story potentially, but I don't know if he'll last very long.
Yeah, again, it's might, be overplaying it a little bit because it's like that's just what I read. It's like these two players are basically saying, I want this guy or I'm not playing. I don't like that in any sport.
Oh yeah.
The players should not be making those decisions. He might work out, and he was fine last year, and he definitely had the locker room, which is very important. But past that, like being a head coach of the team, and everything that comes with that, picking your players, choosing the right plays. There's still so much more to be seen for a full season for Antonio. So I don't know. I think he's a pretty cool dude and did a really good job for being the interim, but I don't know. We'll wait and see. But yeah, I don't think there's, I mean, maybe 4 or 5 wins for these guys.
Yeah. So we have to close the AFC West with the Broncos, and we'll make our AFC West pick. I think it's pretty obvious based off of everything we've said. But you have the Broncos, who had Russell Wilson. They made the historic trade for Russell Wilson, and it goes down as being one of the worst trades that ever happened. And Russell Wilson gets traded, ran out of town, and the Broncos still owe him a crap ton of money. And
Forgot about that.
now their quarterback room in Denver is Zach Wilson, Jared Stidham, and new draft pick Bo Nix. What on earth is going on in Denver?
It's exactly the point I was gonna say. I was gonna list all three of those guys. So you beat me to the punch there. That is kind of sad, especially for Sean Payton. Um, I honestly, man, I see these guys about the same as the Raiders. You do have Sean Payton as your head coach, but they really botched the Russell Wilson, debacle last year. We talked about this, last season. Didn't really believe in Russell Wilson coming in, and you know, him having his own office. It was a he needed to get out of there. But the way the team handled that whole thing, they really mismanaged that. They looked awful trying to push Russell Wilson out.
Yeah.
By basically the letter of the law. They're like, well, we can't really fire you or bench you. We're gonna basically force you to bench yourself. And I didn't like any of that stuff that I was hearing. So don't really trust this coaching staff. But now that he's gone, that distraction's out of there. But again, they have to figure out a heck of a lot with. A lot of people are not really believing in Bo Nix, which I think was drafted as okay, he was number 12 off the board.
He's the guy, right? Like
no one thought he was going first round, and the Broncos are like, oh, by the way, they're like, who's this dude?
It's so weird. Because like Russell Wilson, he was fine last year, but I think it was inevitable that it was over. But you're going from Russell Wilson, who just we'll talk about when we cover the AFC North here in a second, to Zach Wilson, who everybody knows what you're getting out of Zach Wilson. He's just doesn't have it unless it's week 4 and he's going to play out of his mind against the Chiefs. But Jared Stidham, failed starter. I know he was with the Raiders. I feel like he might have been with the Patriots at one point. I don't know. I'm curious how long, because this is the full rebuild. I'm curious, how long Sean Payton will actually want to be invested in it. I think he has 5 years on his contract, maybe 4 left. But this is a big turnaround. And again, like when you're in a division with the Chiefs seem to have figured out the formula to create sustainability in a league that's built for parity. Like, okay, you can rebuild and get better, and maybe you'll have a winning season, or maybe you'll get one of those wild card spots, but you're gonna have to do a lot of work to compete in a division with a team like the Chiefs, where they just are like, oh, we lost this player, that's fine, we'll just draft somebody. And like, I think what you're gonna bank on if you're the other teams, because obviously Brett Veach doesn't really have many misses when it comes to the draft. I think the only one that really pops into my head is just a straight up miss was Breeland Speaks, defensive line. But you're almost having to bank on Brett Veach to miss on a draft pick. And so far, unless I'm just not thinking like, and you could maybe say Sky Moore, but I think they might find a way to utilize him in a way that fits him. And if we lower our expectations of what we want out of Sky Moore, which I think we have this year, we'll be happier. Because like, I'm thinking about McCole Hardman too. I know I'm getting way out on left field here, but
you're good.
Whenever the Chiefs drafted McCole Hardman, he was, Tyreek Hill's replacement. He's gonna do everything Tyreek Hill did and better, because the whole Tyreek Hill situation that was going down. And then turns out McCole Hardman at best is a gadget player. And I think Chiefs Kingdom has accepted that that's who he is now. And they brought him back, McCole Hardman, and everybody's like, oh, awesome, love to have him back. Where it's like three years ago, we're like, screw that guy, he sucks. But now we're like, okay, he's gonna have 275 yards and whatever. Like he's not, he's just gonna. But anyway, so what I'm saying is, I think while you're trying to rebuild, you're hoping that some of the things that the Chiefs are doing, and this goes for everybody in the AFC, really, like you're hoping that the Chiefs formula stops working at some point. But I think the Chiefs front office is just 2 steps ahead of everybody.
No, you're right. And it comes down to how patient will the Broncos be with Sean Payton, because I think they see that last season as like a throwaway year. He didn't bring in Russell Wilson. He was already there. Clearly got him out of the building. Bo Nix at this point just seems like, well, let's get him, maybe be competitive and see what happens. But we're still thinking long-term rebuild here, So I don't know if the Broncos are going to kick him out of there before a 5-year contract. That's what a lot of NFL teams have been doing, recently. But he's got Cortland Sutton to still throw to. But again, not a whole lot more to really look at at the Broncos.
So before we go over to the AFC North, let's pick our AFC West winner, and I mean, we're picking the Chiefs, right? I think we learned our lesson last year because we were kind of skies falling on this podcast sometimes with the Chiefs, especially late in the season. Like we're like, dude, they might not even make the playoffs.
I like week 8, yeah. We were like,
Yeah,
this is
so
bad.
I mean, when that doom and gloom resulted in a Super Bowl championship, like I have to go into this year and go, yep, I'm picking the Chiefs until proven otherwise.
Right.
Honestly, that's kind of my policy in 2024.
Right. I'm with you. And last year, yeah, we did pick the Chiefs, and we were correct.
Okay, AFC North.
Nothing more there.
In my opinion, this is the most interesting division from as far as all 4 teams are concerned, because
right,
you have the Ravens, who were the 1 seed. They have the reigning MVP in Lamar Jackson. Are probably going to be really good again. You have the Bengals with a Joe Burrow looking like Slim Shady, and also healthy and returning to play. You have, I think Deshaun Watson will be back. I have no faith in the world's most expensive pervert, but and then Russell Wilson and Justin Fields in Pittsburgh. So
where do we want to start?
Yeah, let's start with the Ravens. I think, again, everything I just said, AFC Championship. I think Baltimore and Houston, which we'll talk about Houston next week, are teams that probably have the best shot of beating the Chiefs to get to a Super Bowl. But Lamar Jackson, they added Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry, I feel like we've been saying it for 5 years. Sooner or later, his production's going to fall off. Is this the year that happens? Or we're like, Derrick Henry just doesn't have it anymore?
I don't think so. I'm not doubting this man. Every single year, it's another highlight of him just tossing aside a professional NFL player like he's a child. So, I don't know. I'm very much a believer in people play harder when, the stakes are higher. You get to the Super Bowl, you play to the best of your ability. And in a smaller sense, Derrick Henry's like, okay, these guys almost went to the Super Bowl. Okay. Except for, again, a huge play by Snead knocking out that ball. And I mean, just a very close, very small margin for victory or the other way, like margin of error for like one team or the other to go to the Super Bowl, Chiefs or Ravens. And Derrick Henry's just going to make them that much better. I think he stays healthy. it's like that same team because they really haven't changed. They look about the same. Their roster really hasn't changed that much, and they were that close, and now they also have Derrick Henry and another season together to gel with the new offensive changes they've made with Lamar Jackson. They're just, again, definitely one of the top favorites to go all the way.
Yeah. So I think the Bengals, I'm torn on the Bengals because I think Joe Burrow is really good. I'm curious if there's some rust that needs to be shaken off from Joe Burrow at the beginning of the season. Now, something that the Bengals just do is they're terrible at the beginning of the season, and then they turn it on and get really hot in the back half of the year. But like, obviously, Joe Burrow's back. T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, a lot of the same receiving core. It doesn't feel like they're, one big happy family. I think there's like a little bit of a rift with T. Higgins, and I don't remember if Jamar Chase got paid or not, but I think he wants to get paid. Yeah.
Not yet.
There's some stuff up in the air with them, and it's one of those things where they could be potentially looking at their window closing if they're not careful.
Yeah, actually, that's, with the Joe Burrow of it all, it's pretty weird because he is obviously great. Okay. Only guy to beat Mahomes in the playoffs or whatever, but all of his injuries really, or his last two injuries, I think, were non-contact, which is a little scary. But he had the ACL, I think was his first big one or whatever, and that's really his only kind of negative. The dude is clearly special. But yeah, with that being said, it's like, can he stay healthy? And, he'll be fine, I think. Yeah, you do bring up some good points with, maybe some dissension and that coaching staff also. You can't really blame them when he's getting hurt all the time, I guess. But yeah, it goes to say of like, can they still be as good with those receivers? They did lose Tyler Boyd, but that's about it. I mean, I don't really think their defense is anything to write home about. They really have gotten away with a pretty, middling defense, and I don't think that's really changed either this year. So, if they can keep up the offensive, potential, but defense has not really made a lot of changes, and they haven't really needed it. But I don't know. Oh, and Zach Moss, the last 4 games of the season last year was like he had like 100 yards. It was like he had 2 games with like 150 yards, and the other 2 games were like 70 or 80 yards. Like the dude he looked insane. So Zach Moss, potential to be a really good running back, but we'll see if he can keep that up.
So moving on to the Browns. I want to do the Browns first. They, like Deshaun Watson, obviously should be back. Amari Cooper, who's one of the best receivers in the league. They added Jerry Jeudy. Take it or leave it there, honestly, with him. Yeah.
He's just a guy.
And Nick Chubb. Is Nick Chubb healthy? I feel like this team made the playoffs last year. Their defense was fantastic. It's a crowded AFC North. It's a crowded AFC. And they had again, great defense and a Joe Flacco that they didn't keep, that played out of his mind when he needed to. They had I think they had 3 or 4 different starting quarterbacks last year. Dude, yeah.
I think you're right. And then, yeah.
So I really don't have much to say about them because they're not that interesting.
So, yeah, it comes down to, can Deshaun Watson ever get back to like his MVP style? You know, if he can even come close to that, because he's been awful or hurt. So a lot of that rides on him. The defense, very good, but like potentially a little overrated. They played a lot of like softballs last year. A lot of really bad quarterbacks too, because they played Cincinnati, I think, twice with no Burrow, and then the rest of their games were like, you know, not saying Myles Garrett isn't like at this point possibly the best, you know, defensive player after now that Aaron Donald's gone, but I mean, they did go to the playoffs with Joe Flacco. Okay, you already said that, but you know, with the way Deshaun Watson's been up and down, you know, and they have a new offensive coordinator, Ken Dorsey. You know, a lot of changes there. I felt like they should have kept Flacco as a backup QB, but I think he wanted to move on and possibly, you know, try to get a starting job or at least a better backup spot somewhere else. But yeah.
So, Steelers, the most mediocre team in the world. If you look up the definition of average in the dictionary, you're going to see a picture of Mike Tomlin and the Steelers. And obviously, the big thing with them, kind of touched on it, is the quarterback situation. They decided, let's take a chance on Russell Wilson. And they were the ones that traded for Justin Fields, so the Bears could make way for Caleb Williams. Who's obviously, I think Russell Wilson is a quarterback week one, but when does this become, or does this become Justin Fields' team?
I think it's inevitable. They also got a new OC. They got Falcons head coach Arthur Smith as their OC. But yeah, Danger Russ. I don't know. I've kind of said my take on him. I don't really believe in him anymore. I really liked him back in the day when he was on Seattle. I thought he was one of the, you know, better quarterbacks I've ever seen, just being a dual threat. Or a guy like Mahomes is now who could stretch plays with his legs. You know, I'd never seen anybody do that kind of stuff before, and it's not really that dude. He's kind of a robot. You know, he's just a weirdo to me now, and I think it's inevitable. It's like not if, but when Justin Fields plays. How long into the season, that kind of remains to be seen, because they've kind of like, okay, well, we're gonna pick this dude up, but we're also gonna trade for this guy. Very interesting choice to make as a team. And again, it's Mike Tomlin. I don't really see them even. I mean, yeah, they did get a wild card berth last year. I guess that is possible again. Anything is possible with Mike Tomlin as your head coach, but I mean, yeah, George Pickens, Van Jefferson's still there. Najee Harris is also a very good running back, but Pickens is a great target, especially the throws that Russell made last year. You know, he had Cortland Sutton making ridiculous plays. I think Pickens is as good as a Cortland Sutton. And again, this Pat Freiermuth as well, the tight end, like that guy is going to be something special as well.
I think when I think about Russell Wilson, just to way backtrack here,
Well, I just go on and on. So
whenever the Broncos traded for him, I think the Broncos went 7-10 the year prior, and I thought, okay, Russell Wilson's going to make this a 10-win football team easily. Just like plug him in, and
right.
that's that. You have a winning football team. I don't think anybody could have predicted the immediate just like he fell off a cliff, right? Can't predict that. Somebody
Right.
that had been to 2 Super Bowls, never won an MVP, obviously. He never even got MVP votes, but was just consistently playing at a high level for just short of a decade. And just got to Denver and just wasn't it. So I don't like based out what he spent. Was he 2 years or 3 years in Denver? Either way, I don't have faith that he's just gonna all of a sudden go to Pittsburgh and be great again. Now we've seen Mike Tomlin be able to take somebody like Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph and make them seem serviceable. So can he just be like, "Hey, Russell Wilson, I just need to play football. I don't need you to be a weirdo or anything else.
Right.
I don't need you to say Broncos country, let's ride, and let that be a meme for a year and a half." But so I don't know. I think this will be Justin Fields' team by week 8.
It was 2 seasons. He did play in Denver for 2. And honestly, you make a really good point. Like, he could, especially with Tomlin, like, he knows how to coach. He's one of the few head coaches that, like, really gets his team, where they need to be. Like, he makes his players that much better than so many other head coaches, even attempt to try to do. And I don't know. It could be interesting. Like, he could just be serviceable enough to be very successful with the team and the play calling, or we could see him Justin Fields in week 4 or something.
So let's make our AFC North picks. I'm curious if we'll be on the same page. I think we are, but I'll let you go first. And then you can tell us what we did last year. We were probably wrong.
Yeah, this one was. Yeah, we were. This one was tough. I thought about this earlier, and I mean, you got to go with the Ravens again. Because I try to avoid, like, if they're healthy, if this team stays healthy, it's like, okay, like, well, let's throw it all out. Everyone's healthy for the whole season, and they're playing the height of their powers. I still think Ravens take the division. Bengals obviously get some sort of wild card situation because, again, they've got changes with their team and Burrow's being back, knocking rust off. They play Chiefs week 2. As you said, they were very slow starters, but then it seems like they can't be stopped. It's a really tough one to call, but I think after, especially the MVP season that Lamar had, I mean, I don't think he's going to play that much worse. If not a repeat, it's not unheard of, for a QB to go back-to-back MVP season. So I don't know.
Yeah, so that's kind of my thing is I think the Bengals are intriguing, just the return of Joe Burrow. We've seen what he's capable of. But I think it would be disrespectful to the Ravens based off of kind of what they've
Right.
built and what they did last year, and they're really kind of bringing in the same group of guys this season. So I feel like it wouldn't make sense to not pick the Ravens. So I'm picking the Ravens because I think they'll make another deep playoff run. I think I would if you want to pick the Bengals, I'd say okay. I definitely can see it,
Right.
but just I got to pick the Ravens.
Yeah. So we didn't really pick. We kind of got off track, and I don't know. We didn't really pick last year, but we basically were like, okay, it's the Bengals. I think is essentially who we were like, okay, they're gonna pick. They're gonna be, winning the division, and the Ravens wild card. So we basically had it flipped last year, but that was so wrong. Which we were not the only ones because it was Ravens won the division, the Browns and the Steelers both got wild cards. So
Yeah, that the whole division kind of ended up being a surprise. Like nobody put a lot of stock into the Browns and Steelers. Like they go 9-8. You don't, or I think they went 10-7 last year, but that's not surprising. Yeah. So but the Bengals again, like injuries kind of took over there. But yeah.
Yeah, if the Jags and the Colts couldn't get out of their own way and just win one game, the Steelers wouldn't have even made the wild card.
So AFC West, we agree. Kansas City Chiefs, AFC North, Baltimore Ravens. So
okay.
No conflicting picks so far, but next week we will look at the AFC East and the AFC South, which again both have some interesting storylines, but obviously we'll get into that next week. So thank you for tuning in this week. We will catch you next time.